Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this press conference. Dear Mr. President, dear Vladimir, it's always an honor to have you here in Brussels, and this is a momentous day for Ukraine and for Belgium. For 2 years now, Belgium has stood as partner, has stood on your side to uphold the territorial integrity, the sovereignty and the independence of Ukraine. Today, together, we take this cooperation one big step further. The agreement on security cooperation and the long-term support that we just signed will provide and expand the assistance that we provide to Ukraine against this brutal aggression of Russia, and we will continue doing that for as long as it is necessary. As you know, Belgium has provided military support from the very start of this conflict. With this agreement, we make clear that we will continue doing that. For this year alone, for 2024, our military support amounts already to more than €1 billion that we provided. The current agreement provides the possibility to provide Ukraine with the necessary modern military equipment and with also support from our defense industry. In this agreement, we focus on what your military needs to defend its population. That means air defense, that means artillery, that means armored vehicles, and of course also the F-16s that we have talked about in the past. These F-16 jets will be provided to Ukraine as soon as possible. Our aim is to be able to provide first aircraft before the end of this year, 2024. That is because one thing is for us absolutely clear. You and your Ukrainian population, you deserve the right tools in order to protect your population against a completely illegitimate aggression. We see it every day, and again, the blatant attack that took place on Kharkiv over the weekend is another example of the brutal aggression and the threat of life that Ukrainians have to face day over and day over. We will also continue to support Ukraine's security and defense forces in a concerted effort, such as, for example, the maritime sector, mine clearing, and the operations of the X-16s. We know that some will be provided during the second half of the year, and we will be providing maintenance and industrial support for that. But let me be very clear. More needs to be done. It needs to be done faster, and it needs to be done better. Ukraine can only push back the invader if we provide more and if we provide better arms and if we are able to do it in a faster pace. As Europeans, as NATO members, we fully acknowledge the need for that and we fully acknowledge your demand for that. This agreement, of course, goes beyond only the military side. We also commit to increase our aid on economic recovery, on the reconstruction, and on the rebuilding of critical infrastructure. Critical infrastructure which is being destroyed, where we see citizens are being targeted. These are targets which are not military targets. This is just general civil infrastructure that is being targeted, is being destroyed, and the impact of that on their population is a very big one. So we have coordinated our efforts. We have welcomed Ukrainian refugees. We have imposed sanctions on the aggressors, and we will provide civil and military support. European Union and its member states have in total welcomed 7.6 million refugees over the past months. We have by now implemented 13 rounds of sanctions targeting Russia, targeting Belarus, ranging from targeting economic sanctions and also visa restrictions. And under the Belgian presidency, in which we still are, we are working to implement now a 14th package, and we are confident that that 14th package will be adopted under our presidency. Furthermore, and we know this was a big endeavor for you. And Ukraine and Moldova have been granted the candidate status of the European Union. And I think this is really signaling our commitment to their European future. Our actions go way beyond words. The EU has pledged in total more than 50 billion in aid to Ukraine over a period of 4 years. It's clear, European resolve remains steadfast. There is absolutely no doubt on that. The Russian invasion might have turned into a war of attrition, but the EU and Belgium, we will continue to stand on your side in this unfortunate war of attrition. We will do so now, we will do so tomorrow, and we will continue doing so for as long as it is necessary. We are very determined when it comes to our support, and I think that today is another show of that determination. We signed this bilateral security agreement, and I think it really reaffirms Belgium's support for Ukraine's path to the future membership of the European Union and of NATO. We know, and this is extremely painful, that the fight is tough and is long. We know that your population is suffering, and we know that your population wants peace. We also know that the situation on the battlefield with the Russian aerial attacks is a constant threat. But you will prevail, and it is our duty to help you to make sure that you can prevail. Our support remains resolute and unwavering. The outcome of this war is pivotal for our European interests, for our European values, and for our European security. Belgium stands, and Belgium will continue to stand with Ukraine and its people. Slava Ukraini.
Okay.
Mr. Prime Minister, dear Alexander, dear journalists, and all those present here, today we have turned over a new leaf in the relationship between our states, Ukraine and Belgium, and this is important for the stability and security of all Europe. Alexander, Mr. Prime Minister, I'm grateful for the ambitious and substantial security agreement between our states. Thank you, and thank to our teams and to your ministers. And it is now, when Russia is trying to extend and prolong the war, we need more precise steps that bring peace closer. Firstly, we have a clear fixation of the supply to Ukraine of combat aircraft. We thank you for this decision. We have fixed in an agreement the quantity of F-16s that Ukraine can get from Belgium, that is 30 aircraft units, and this is our task, so that this year we can use first F-16s in Ukraine, and so that these F-16s make our stance stronger. Second is that our security agreement has the duration term of 10 years, and for this year we have fixed the level of financial support for our defense from Belgium, almost 1 billion euros, and that volume will be directed at defense of lives of our people from Russian terror. Also, for the strengthening of our security, we will direct our cooperation between Ukraine and Belgium in developing a defense industry base, and that is also fixed in our agreement. Third, and I'm grateful to Belgium and Mr. Prime Minister personally for the unwavering support of Ukrainian efforts and joint work with the partners regarding our accession to EU and NATO, and we await in June the decision about actual start of our negotiations with the European Union regarding membership. We are preparing also to NATO summit that will take place this summer. The fourth is that in conditions of such illegal war that Russia has started, and only Russia can be blamed for this war, the absolutely of great principle is the issue of justice. That regards also the sanctions and the usage of Russia's assets that can be directed at protection of life and directed to the reconstruction of just human normality after Russian strikes. About the sanctions package, Mr. Prime Minister has already addressed this question. Now we will be very grateful if now the EU, our friendly partners, vote and adopt the new sanctions package against Russia's aggression. Now, Russia is trying to bring even more destructions to Ukraine, to kill even more people. And thank you, Alexander, that you have mentioned Kharkiv. Kharkiv, indeed, this region suffers a lot, and the conditions are difficult in many regions, but Kharkiv is particularly under attack, and we have to be absolutely conscious and understand that Putin has only one influence mechanism, that is the destruction of life. He's not capable of doing anything else, and he is not willing to do anything else, to be honest. So crucial is the sufficient power of weaponry so that we can physically defend from Russia's terror, and the power of justice so that everybody in the world knows that terror affects the terrorist itself the worst. And today we have discussed that this year Ukraine can get 1.7 billion euros from revenue from Russia's frozen assets, and there is also a decision regarding reconstruction, and Belgium will allocate funds to rebuild our Chernihiv region, and we are working also to open up Belgian office of Belgian Agency on Development in Ukraine. And fifth, I thank Belgium and Mr. Prime Minister personally for the support of Global Peace Summit that will start on the 15th of June. There are only two scenarios for the future, either through peace or further extension of the war. We see that Russia does everything in order to disrupt the peace summit, to prolong the war. And I thank every leader and state who understand this and make everything to make peace summit force Russia to peace. And that is absolutely possible, and it all depends on how resolute the world leaders are and what the state actually chooses. If it wants a true peace to reign, or is satisfied with the situation that we have now with the war. Therefore, the participation in Peace Summit provides the answer to the choice of everyone. Alexander, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you for the choice for the sake of peace. I thank you for this meeting. Thank you, Belgium. Glory to Ukraine.
A few questions which are lined up. I think first Jan Balliot from the Flemish broadcaster.
Yes, thank you. Mr. President, first a question for you. First question for you, Mr. President. You published a dramatic call on Sunday for world leaders to attend this Global Peace Summit in Switzerland. At the same moment, we here in the West, growing calls from left and right for to start negotiations to end the fighting. How long do you think you can withstand the pressure from these calls, or do you think that still a military victory is possible in the war in Ukraine? And a question for Prime Minister De Croo. Belgium will deliver F-16s. Will there be any limitations on the use of these F-16s by Ukraine? Can they, for instance, shoot down a Russian fighter jet in Russian airspace?
Thank you for this question. First and foremost, if we desire justice, and Ukraine as a democratic state, it demands it from democratic world, then for sure Ukraine has to prevail. But I don't want to make any loud statements. It is difficult to prevail only with weaponry. We need to know that Ukraine wants the war to end as soon as possible, but in a just manner, with the just peace. Therefore, we need weaponry, so that we are not fully destroyed, so that we are not fully occupied. And Russia desires it since the very start of the full-scale invasion. So we need to withstand against this evil. We see that Russia is not alone now. There is now open supply from Iran, supply of not only drones, but also missiles. There is also supply chains of artillery shells and missiles from North Korea, etc. And there are certain things that we do not mention in public now, but we see these supplies. We get our intelligence reports. However, we do not mention it until we have 100% proofs of these supplies to Russian evil. That is what regards Russia's supplies. Therefore, we are grateful for the F-16 supplies. So we want to speed up the decisions of pilot training and speed up also other decisions that countries such as Belgium now undertake. At the same time, we need to speed up diplomatic ways so that Ukraine does not access in tens of years. Therefore, we have suggested the Peace Summit, and yes, I indeed published the video. I was with the visit to Kharkiv, and I saw 50,000 books that were just blown up. 50,000 of burned books. Deaths of people, the wounded. Huge numbers. We appeal to the world leaders. If you desire peace, then let's meet on the Peace Summit platform. It is absolutely just that we prepare this platform together with other partners, because it is us who have the war, so the initiative has to come from us. We are a victim. We are being under attack. We are being killed, so there is no need to look for alternative. We need to move along this path. If there are alternative opinions, please, leaders, come to summit. We have an open mic. We do not just defend the values of freedom and democracy in our words. We are this way. And so every other country can come and can suggest its diplomatic ways to end the war. Therefore, I have addressed the leaders of the United States, of China, and also other leaders. And I believe that if you desire peace, then you will be there and you will speak, even if you disagree with something. But you come to the summit. But if you desire war, you will come to that mob gathering that Putin is now organizing. And be sure that Putin is afraid of this peace summit. He did not believe that 90 countries will support us, so he continues his efforts to disrupt this summit. And so he now is thinking of organizing some parallel platform. Therefore, there are leaders now who have not stated their opinion in public. I believe that there are people that if people want to support Russia, then they support the war, because Putin has come to us with the war. But if the leaders are silent, that is even worse. That is even worse, I believe, because you are either for peace or for war. And it is better to know that you are an enemy rather than you have no opinion whatsoever. Because if you are silent, you are satisfied with what is going on.
Yes, on Jan, your question on the utilization of weapons. Everything which is covered by this agreement is very clear. It is for utilization by the Ukraine Defense Forces on the Ukraine territory. Dus het gebruik van de wapens die wij leveren, dat staat gestipuleerd in het akkoord dat wij getekend hebben. Het is voor gebruik door de Oekraïense Defense Forces op het Oekraïense grondgebied. Second question, I would propose Sofia Grigorchuk from TV channel Rada. Yes, there. Microphone is coming your way.
Good afternoon. So we talked about this peace summit is just a few weeks away. So which of those who were invited are you still waiting to hear back from? It's for Mr. President Volodymyr Zelensky, and the presence of which world leaders is really important for Ukraine right now at the peace summit. Thank you.
We have a couple of representatives of African continent. We await from them their confirmation. We have positive signals. And I would want President Biden to be personally present. And I'm aware that America supports the summit, but we do not know on which level. And I think that that is not a strong decision. With all the respect to every person in the United States of America, because they assist us very much, But now the situation is very simple, that there is a peace summit that has been organized by the whole world. And afterwards there will be something that Russia is trying to perpetuate. And I believe that President Biden, that peace summit needs President Biden. And also other leaders need President Biden because they evaluate the US reaction. So his absence will be only an applaud to Putin, personal applaud to Putin, standing applaud. We are also expecting the reply from China. We would also want to get an answer from Brazil, but there are also many other states. We are open to everybody. Every opinion is important to us. Now I have mentioned big states, either by territory or influence, but believe me that every voice is important. We are grateful to everybody who supports us.
Thank you. Next question from Henry Foy from the Financial Times, please.
Thank you. Mr. President, welcome back to Belgium. We know that the US and some other allies are opposed to you striking targets in Russia itself. In recent days, you've conducted successful strikes on Russian long-range radar systems. Do you believe these strikes will help convince Washington to change its stance? Or are you saying with these strikes that you're going to continue regardless of what the Americans think? And Mr. Prime Minister, thank you. Here in Brussels, one country, Hungary, is blocking all other member states from spending EU cash on weapons for Ukraine. Is it not true that Viktor Orban is now acting on behalf of Russia, not on behalf of Ukraine? And what can and should the EU do to spend this money regardless of Orban's attitude? Thank you.
I'm not going to speak about the war in general, but I will speak about the most recent case in Kharkiv Oblast, where the Russian forces have advanced for 10 kilometers onto our territory. Now imagine them standing along the border. They are not civilians, those are the armed forces. So they stand there and they shoot at you from the artillery, long-range weapons, and their capacities, unfortunately, are better. They are shooting you, and you cannot respond to them, simply because we don't have the right to use the weapon. When they shoot, they either kill people or under the pressure of that fire, because the military, they are human beings and they have to step back. And this is the right decision. They don't have to die under fire. It's simply because you cannot reach to them. So you have to step back. And you cannot do anything. You step back and they advance. You step back a few kilometers, they advance a few kilometers. The scrolling occupation is a principle they constantly use. They keep attacking Kharkiv. They keep attacking regular people. The recent attack on a hypermarket, do-it-yourself hypermarket, everything was blown up. Children, people, civilians, and you cannot answer them. You receive the satellite images from your intelligence, but there is nothing you can do to respond. I think this is unfair. But we, and this is a fact, cannot risk the support of our partners. That is why we are not using our partners' arms to attack the Russian territory. That's why we are asking, please give us the permission to do that.
On your question, indeed, there is no agreement yet, and we always found a way to be convincing and to come to a compromise. But it is true that decision is needed as fast as possible, and we hope we can reach an agreement. Our only aim is to protect Ukrainian civilians. Every day that with European Peace Facility we cannot send weapons to defend the Ukrainian population is a day where unfortunately innocent lives are being lost, and very often women and children who are not involved in this conflict at all. So we hope we can get to an agreement. We've had other moments where it was difficult to get to an agreement. We always got to one, so that is the aim we have. Then the last question from Mr. Stepanenko from the RFE Ukrainian service. Yes, please.
Thank you so much for giving me the floor. So my first question is to Prime Minister De Croo. You mentioned that 30 F-16 jets Ukraine will receive by 2028. So my question is, how many out of those 30s Ukraine will receive till the end of this year? And you also mentioned that Ukrainian armed forces are allowed to use those F-16s on Ukrainian territory. What kind of conditions have to be met in order for you to lift those restrictions, and is there a chance, a room for lifting those restrictions? And моє питання до президента Zelensky.
And now my question to the President. A few weeks ago, in an interview, you mentioned that you are in negotiations with the partners to lift the restrictions to strike the Russian territory, and there has been no positive answer. What's the update for now?
For your question. So we will do everything in our capacity to deliver some planes already this year, and this could be a significant addition to the other two countries who are delivering F-16s this year, and we will continue afterwards, of course, as fast as possible. Of course, taking into account our own needs and the change of our planes with the new F-35s. Of course. One should not only focus on the delivery of the planes. Today, we are part of the F-16 effort. Our planes are being used today to train the new Ukrainian pilots. Our technical teams are being used to provide technical assistance to keep the planes in the air. Our teams are training Ukrainian technicians to do that. We do that in consultation with Denmark, the Netherlands, and Norway. The fact that we can add our planes ourselves already this year and in the years to come, I think, is a very important signal to make absolutely clear that Ukraine will have a full-blown air defense capacity based on fighter jets in the months to come and in the years to come. Our goal is to provide that capacity. Providing that capacity is with the planes themselves, but also with training and the capabilities for that. As I said, everything which is covered by this agreement is military material, military equipment that is to be used by the Ukrainian Defense Forces, and it is to be used on the Ukrainian territory. This is the agreement that we made.
Thank you for your question. You probably know Russia has started this war, and it has ended our regular life. It has ended our electricity supply, our water supply by its airstrikes. And nobody was able to stop Russia from those attacks. Diplomatic means didn't help. The air defense systems that we received from our partners saved the lives of our people, but it wasn't enough to save our energy system. The answer came when we started to produce long-range drones and when we started to make Russia believe that in some time Ukraine will be able to respond on their energy system. We don't have missiles to match the Russia's efforts, but what we did showed some result. It disbalanced their economy, their military potential. That's why our tactic was to stop and to decrease their profit from energy resources. This is the point where we used to be. And this is the way from saying don't touch their objects to can we use your weapons against the Russian invaders? This is a long way, and we are trying to make it shorter and faster. I am sure the result will be positive, both from our partners and from our industry.
For your presence, and thank you for this press conference. Yeah.